a great privilege and opportunity to recognize the brightest students in the Lawrence County. We do this 3 times a year, and we will be doing that today. By way of explanation, our county schools students are taking, I think we call it AP tests today, and a couple of those are not here. I tried to change the date and weren't able to, but next year we're going to try to change this so they can all be here. We'll have someone else representing them today. We recognize these students as they're listed in your program. Our first is from Dublin High School, Mr. Kip Evans, if he'll come up. He has with him today the assistant principal of Dublin High, Gil Allen, and his parents, the Evans, Bert and Michelle. Let me tell you about Kip. His favorite subject is United States history. Some of his accomplishments is a 4-year varsity letter in baseball, an honor graduate, AP United States History Award, Baseball Hustle Award. Some of the things he's been involved in his Beta Club, FFA, FCA, FU, MC. I guess that's, First United Methodist Church, Voice of Truth, Young Adults Bible Study, Citizens Bank, Yearbook Staff, avid sportsman. His sport is baseball. His career goal is a veterinarian. If he could do one thing to change the world, he answers, continue telling people about the unfailing love of Jesus Christ, which by far would have the biggest influence on the way we all live on this earth. Help me congratulate Kip Evans, our student of the quarter from Dublin High School. From East Lawrence, and he cannot be here today, Zachary Jones, and I will be going to East Lawrence first of the week and making this presentation on behalf of the club to him. His name is Zachary Jones. He has a GPA of 97.2. He's 4th out of 122 in his class. He's the son of Brandon Jones and Kelly Jones. His favorite subject is math. He had the highest PSAT score in the 10th grade, highest average in math, science, and literature. He's a member of the Beta Club, the East Lawrence Ambassador, a tour guide for community groups coming through East Lawrence High. He's a part of the Wilkes Church of the Nazarene and has helped elderly members with their yard work and other duties. He's first degree black belt in, I can't say this, Taekwondo or something like that. But be careful, he can get you if he wants to. Career goals, he plans to go to the United States Air Force. When asked what would he do to change the world, he said, in my opinion, starvation is an unnecessary way to die. If everyone in the world would give a small portion of what they have to those who have none, we could wipe out hunger. Ending hunger would increase the world economy and make these people worthwhile citizens. In his absence, let's congratulate Zachary Jones, student of the quarter from East Lawrence High. Next is T.K. Flowers from Trinity Christian School. Let me tell you about T.K. From Trinity Christian School is Allison Rhodes, the academic director there. Who else do we have from Trinity? Do we? Okay. He's the son of Stephanie and Timothy Flowers. His favorite subject is math. We've got a bunch of math majors here today. Some of his accomplishments, he received the highest math average, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, the highest Spanish average in the 11th grade, Coaches Award, 9th and 10th grade, basketball defensive player, basketball most valuable player, basketball all-region player, basketball all-state player, basketball anything. TK is TK Flowers. But he also Region 2A long jumping champion, Region 2A triple jumping champion in the 12th in the 12th grade. Some of his extracurricular activities: Lawrence Youth Leadership Group, Citizens Bank Advisory Board, Praise Dance Group at Holly Springs Church, Choir Drama Club. His sports: basketball, maybe, football, baseball, track, tennis, swimming. Haven't you played soccer one time in your life? And you'd have a complete a complete resume of sports here. But this guy is a sports guy. Well, he plans to go to college and get an engineering degree. He wants to start his own engineering company. When asked if he could do one thing that would change the world forever, he said, "I would do away with all alcoholic beverages. Alcohol causes so many problems in the world and ruins so many lives. So if I were able to do one thing, it would be that." Help me congratulate T.K. Flowers, our student of the quarter. Our student of the quarter from West Lawrence High School is Colleen Garnto. Representing Colleen today is her mom, Amy Garnto, her dad, Clifford Garnto, her principal, Clifford Garnto, and we recognize Colleen today. Well, Colleen has a GPA of 4.0 or 99.54. If you want the exact numbers, she ranks number 1 out of 275 seniors at West Lawrence High School. She is, of course, the valedictorian of the class this year. Her favorite subject is math. I guess she inherited that. Some of her accomplishments, in addition to being valedictorian, she's vice president of the National Honor Society, section leader of the Rotary Brigade band, member of the Georgia District Church of the Nazarene A-Team in Bible quizzing. By the way, that's the very top award in Bible quizzing. Dublin Lawrence Honor Band for 4 years. JV Raider Award for softball, 10th grade. Marching band, wind ensemble, jazz band, Beta Club, Honor Society, Anchor Club, Spanish Honor Society. Former member of the West Lawrence JV and varsity softball team. Her career goals is to attend Nazarene University in Nashville, in which she will major in psychology. She wants to become a clinical counselor. My goal is to help young people and families overcome the struggles of everyday life, Colleen says. When asked if she could do one thing that would change the world forever, I would show the love of God to all people. I will let people know that someone cares immensely for them. Help me congratulate Colleen Gonto, our student of the quarter from West Lawrence High School. Now we switch to the Davis Hilburn Scholarship. I don't need to tell most of you who Jeff Davis and Jim Hilburn were. They were very active Rotarians, parts of this community for many years, and contributed so much to this club, but really to this community. And the Davis Hilburn Scholarship was set up following their tragic deaths, and we honor a student today in their memory. We received 30 applications, which I believe is a record for the Davis Hilburn Scholarship. We have a scoring rubric that it has 10 areas in it. And by the way, I appreciate Locke Williford and Randy Jackson who did the scoring. It can't be rigged because the rubric is very, very specific, and it says a lot about who Jim Hilburn and Jeff Davis were as we look at these applicants and what they're involved in and what contribution they're making to this community. We have a clear winner. However, starting second through sixth place, it was very, very close. But our winner of the scholarship was the clear winner. And we congratulate Miss Emily Hatchett. If she would come up, she's receiving a $2,000 scholarship from the Davis Hilburn Association.
We have Chrissy Miner here today, who is with 21st Century Partnership, and she's going to be telling us a lot about Robins Air Force Base. A lot of you are confused, and I get some questions about the different things that we participate in at Robins Air Force Base. Well, first is the Military Affairs Committee, and that's generally made up of mayors, council members, county commissioners, and other interested people from around Middle Georgia. And whenever there's some event having to do with the base, the public affairs office of the base contacts all these people and say, we need community support, so come on out and participate. So that's one thing. The other thing, to show your community interest in Robins Air Force Base and Warner Robins and the Middle Georgia community, is support of the Museum of Aviation, which is one of the premier aviation museums in the United States. Then the other thing is the 21st Century Partnership. Thinking back to 1992, everybody thought Robins Air Force Base was secure. Nobody had ever mentioned anything about downsizing or closing. Sam Nunn was our senator from Perry. He was chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and we thought that the base was bulletproof until it was put on the list for closure. That sent shockwaves through the Middle Georgia community, and the outgrowth of that was forming of the 21st Century Partnership. It went to bat and got community support, and we survived that 1992 round of cuts. In 1995, there was another round of base closing. There were 5 air logistics centers like Robins. That year, 2 of them were closed, and Robins survived. It's been 19 years now that continued to survive and thrive, and I'm sure a lot of it has been to do with the build-up and sustaining the effort in Afghanistan and Iraq, and that's obviously declining. So there will be another round of base closing soon, and Chrissy is going to address that kind of issue. You see in your bulletin a nice write-up about her and her achievements. She is works for the 21st Century Partnership as a day job. She is also a weekend warrior with the Air Force Reserve. And when I was a weekend warrior, we didn't have anybody that looked nearly that good. She is very proud of her 4-year-old daughter, who she showed me a photo of her. And General McMahon, who recently resigned from the partnership, Chrissy is now in charge, and his parting comment was, Chrissy and Judy have been the foundation of success of the partnership and will continue to be the driving force regardless of who is at the helm. So I'm proud to present to you, in her weekend warrior job, Captain Chrissy Minor, and her day job, Mrs. Chrissy Minor.
How many of you have heard of the word sequestration? Anyone? Okay. That was big in the news last year. We had a little bit of a challenging environment for 2013. Congress, they couldn't get along. They put forth this trigger called sequestration. And what it was a committee came together and they said, all right, if we can't make an agreement on these budget cuts, we're going to institute an automatic trigger. And that automatic trigger is going to be so horrendous that nobody is going to let it happen. There's not a chance. The time went by, Budget Control Act of 2011. Well, guess what? It happened. And last year, sequestration kicked in place. And what that means, bottom line to the Department of Defense, is $1 trillion, with a T, $1 trillion in reductions over 10 years. Now, you fellow Rotarians are business folks. You understand to take a substantial cut like that is going to be detrimental, especially when the defense budget is less than 20% of your national budget. Taking a huge cut in the wake of that. So what did that mean? We didn't have a budget in the federal government, so we worked on continuing resolutions. Again, tying back to the business community. If you don't have a budget, how hard is that to operate? How do you know what to spend, what you can't spend? What can I do? You don't have a budget in place. We were on continuing resolutions. So what did that mean? I mean furloughs. 26 days off the bat is what were the suggested furloughs. 26 days. So you take a civilian workforce of around 17,000 people and you put them on furlough for 26 days. What does that translate to the local economy? That's near devastation. 26 days for 17,000 people. Middle Georgia stood to be significantly impacted. In knowing this, we addressed this up front in February and said, hey, this is coming. Now, thankfully, those days were reduced to 6 days. But as you can imagine, there was a lot of strained morale on base with the uncertainty and not knowing what was going to happen. So what we did, we had 2 events called Share. The furloughs did go through. They had 6 days. But we knew with that, it was going to shake some household budgets. Folks were going to be stressed out. It was not going to be good. So we had 2 events called Share. This community was tremendous in their response. And I got responses from the entire region on how can I help and what can I do. And bottom line, we put everybody in a room for a holistic approach, looking at folks that you pay your bills to, healthcare providers for blood pressure checks, mental health folks, because obviously if you're taking a hit on your household budget, you're going to be stressed out. Volunteer opportunities. When you're furloughed, why not give back to your community? So we had organizations where they could volunteer their time. And this helped to illustrate to the base community that this community, their community, stood behind them in support of them in these challenging times. One of the biggest things, and probably the most memorable, was in April when General McMahon got up in front of the press and he put up a board that had Robins Air Force Base, Hill Air Force Base, and Tinker Air Force Base. And it showed the amount of union grievances at Robins, vice the union grievances in Oklahoma and Hill. And we had 4 times the amount of grievances at Robins than they did combined at the other 2 air logistics centers. That put a big target on us up in D.C. When the commander of the air logistics complex went to D.C. and had the opportunity to meet the chief of the staff, what did he say about Robins? What is going on with that labor issue down there? That is not what you want to be known for. Subsequently, we had an election. And the election was a clean sweep. The entire labor management was turned into a new administration. Subsequently, those results were challenged by the previous administration, and another election was held. And they beat them even worse the second time. So it's good to know that the folks in place have their eye on the ball and they're interested in everybody working together for the success and the mission of Robins Air Force Base, because that is critical to our survival in the long term, especially when we speak BRAC. I mentioned this already, the BRAC studies. It looked for our strengths and it looked for our weaknesses. And the main opportunity there is to make sure that we are postured to know what is on the horizon and how do we sell ourselves? How do we benefit from this? These are the studies accomplished. I won't read them off to you, but just to give you an idea, these are the areas that were covered in the 15 studies. And each one of these initiatives are looked at by a BRAC commission. So now some data. When we look at wages, direct wages from the base, and you can see at the bottom, these are all the installations that we compared ourselves to. Now, some of them are Marines, some of them are Army. So why do we compare ourselves to Marine and Army bases? Well, bottom line, if I can fix an Air Force plane, I sure as heck can fix an Army plane. And I can fix a Navy plane, right? And we're more than happy to fix their planes here at Robins Air Force Base. So we looked at these 12 other installations and compared ourselves to them in those studies. 28% of every dollar in this region comes directly from Robins Air Force Base. 28%. And that's direct wages, not secondary. When you talk Host County for Houston, 52%. If I go to Sunny's and I give her $1 tip, 52 cents of that came directly from the base. Talk about having all your eggs in one basket. So one of the things that we talk about is diversification. We certainly need to diversify our economy. So takeaways from the study, positive. Houston County has done very well in their educational system. If I told you, when you look at those other installations, some located in California, Utah, North Carolina, all over the United States, Oklahoma, who do you think was number one in standardized math test scores? Well, you kind of laid the foundation for that earlier with the math test scores. Who was number one in standardized math test scores? We were. Number one. Who was number four? We were. In science. Not too shabby. So we need to do a good job of communicating that we have a fantastic educational system here. And we work hard to make sure that we have bright students, and that is evidenced by this morning, right before me, of the quality of students that you have coming out of this region. Regional medical support. We scored very highly when we looked at a region. We looked at both the host county, and then the regional. As far as a regional medical support, we scored very highly, which is great news for us. And so when we tell that story, we're going to tell it from a regional perspective, and we're going to tout the accomplishments of our medical community to that commission. Encroachment. This is one of the things, 10 years ago. Encroachment means that when you have an airplane, there's a certain amount of space at the end of a runway that you need clearance in case, God forbid, of an accident, but also in the surrounding area for noise. If it gets too loud, that's called encroachment. And if you're impacting the public, that's encroachment. So as a region, this community got together and they got money from local governments, from state, and also from the federal government. And they are 70% complete in purchasing about 250 acres of land at the north end of the Robins Air Force Base runway, which will completely eliminate our encroachment issue. And what does that mean? That means that there is no limitation to what we can bring here as far as new missions. That means when the Air Force needs to put an airplane somewhere, they go, well, look at Robins. They have zero encroachment issues. And there's room to grow. And that's key. And that ties right into air quality. The Middle Georgia Clean Air Coalition. The study that we had said that our air quality was great in Houston County. But guess what? Bibb County was in non-attainment, which means that their air quality was not to EPA standards. So what did that do? That made us fair in comparison to those other communities. Well, I'm here to tell you today that last night I went to the Clean Air Coalition meeting, and the EPA has sent a letter to the Federal Registry to update that status from non-attainment to attainment. So what does that mean for us? That means that we went from fair to excellent. So here you have two major factors that could impact new missions coming here. And this community has gone together and rallied and mitigated those challenges, which have freed us up for opportunity. There's lots of opportunity. Cost of living for housing. When we look in comparison, we're doing pretty good, about 92%, about 8 points under the national average as far as housing costs. So this is a great place to buy a house. So with the strengths, you obviously highlight your weaknesses in the studies. Here were 5 areas that we need to improve. If I told you we had a crime issue in Houston County, you'd probably look at me like I was crazy. But the study showed that Houston County was 10 out of 12, at the bottom of the list as far as property crime. We have a serious property crime issue in Houston County. One of the responsibilities is for us to bring this information and then go find ways to help address it. And so that's one of our top issues, is addressing the crime. Cost of living. I told you we have fantastic housing prices. But would you be surprised to know that we were actually 4 points above the national average when it comes to utility costs, grocery costs, and healthcare? Is that surprising to anybody? So with that, we need to look at the root cause, and we need to figure out what is going to make this truly a very cost-effective place to live, and therefore more appealing for the Department of Defense to send more missions here. Houston County has the distinction of being the largest urban area in the United States without public transportation. Again, that's a moniker you don't want to have. We're working with our regional partners to find ways to explore getting rid of that moniker and introducing some public transportation options within Houston County. And again, these will show goodwill and progress, and that we care about this community and want to make sure that we are moving in the right direction. Regional education. We did have some struggles when we look as a region at the educational system. We do have some challenges to address. Bibb County in particular being directly adjacent to Houston. They have a new superintendent that will be coming on soon, and I think we should see improvement pretty soon with that. But that's one of the things as a region that we can work. And maybe they can take lessons from Dublin as well, and Lawrence County. Base capacity to grow. Point blank, when we lost our tanker mission, people kind of spread out. They moved their stuff. They said, look, there's some office space. I'm going to put some of my stuff over here too. So we need to work people getting into the adequate space, and with that, making room. So we can go to the Department of Defense and we go, look, I want this mission. I have no encroachment issues. I have no air quality issues. And here's where I'm going to put them. Here's the square footage you need. Here's the mission support you need. And it's ready to go. Put them right here. That's where we want to be. That's how we know we're ready and we can make progress. So with that said, 2013 was a rough year. We had a lot of challenges in the community, especially with the base. But we are very optimistic with 2014. There's a 2-year budget agreement in place. The Department of Defense can plan. They know how much money they can spend now. They can begin new programs. And the sequester was pushed off for 2 years. ALC, the Air Logistics Complex, which you heard Bob call it a center before. General McMahon was the last 2-star general that headed that center. There was a reorganization in 2011, which made that 2-star a 1-star, and it put a 3-star at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, where the other depot is. So there's a 3-star in Oklahoma who is now stratifying all 3 of us and comparing us. We have right-sized the workforce. And what does that mean? That means that we have the right number of workforce to work on the workload that we have. And that's good news. That's a step in the right direction. That means that everybody can focus on their processes and making sure that they do things right and we get those airplanes moving. In February, we had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and talk to the Air Force leaders and the Department of Defense leaders, and guess what they told us? They told us that Air Force Reserve Command going away was a non-starter. There's talk about that going away, which is a major command that employs 1,100 people on Robins Air Force Base. They told us that JSTARS is going to get new airplanes. JSTARS is the only operational mission at Robins Air Force Base, and their fleet is aging and decrepit, to say the least. So they're looking at doing a rapid replacement of airplanes for that weapon system, which is good news for us because that means that it can be here long into the future. They reinforced the 3-depot strategy, which means, yes, I'm committed to having 3 depots. I can tell you that I want 3 depots and not 2. Because guess what? If they want 2 depots, we got some tough times ahead. But they publicly acknowledged the 3-depot strategy. Finally, capacity. We have capacity right now to take new airplanes, to fix new weapon systems. We have it. So we got to go get it. And we got to posture ourselves to make sure that we can do that. And the man that was in charge for maintenance policy for the entire Department of Defense, he said, yeah, that's a good idea. We could send Navy workload there. How about that? So for our opportunities, on base, we need to continue improving the labor management relations. They're moving in the right direction. We need to keep them moving. We need to regain competitive production levels. We need to make sure that they're turning those airplanes out on time with exceptional quality and at the best value to the Department of Defense, so they want to send their workload here. This will surprise you, but we're not against a BRAC. We say bring it on. We've done our homework. We know what we have to do to make sure that we are competitive and we are best postured to gain. We have been very successful, as Bob mentioned, in the past with base realignment closure. Very successful. And we are armed with the information to know what our strengths are, what are our weaknesses, what do we go work, what do we tout in the public. We know what we got to do. Because if you don't have BRAC, that's what you have. Death by 1,000 cuts. 500 less airplanes between 2015 and 2019. And guess what? The Air Force does what they want. They move, it's like a chess game. They move their airplanes around, they do what they want. In BRAC, you have a congressional oversight. And those people that sit on that commission, they are human and they have emotions just like you and me. And guess what? If they come here, they put us on the list and they come here, there is no way they can leave here without knowing the dedication this community has to Robins Air Force Base. And it speaks volumes in the support for the 21st Century Partnership. It speaks volumes in the military affairs committees. And it speaks volumes of the community regional support that we get for this base. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.